You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to thewritingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. My name is Chris. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited about tonight's show. We've got a great guest on, and starting season 9 off with a bang, because last week was pretty impressive. We had Holly Watt on, whose life story kind of seemed like a spy character, which was all really interesting. And that's what I really love about this show, is we get to meet the real people of the writing community in the Twitter sense and in the kind of real world sense as well, and meet the authors, indie and established, and we get all their stories personally and the fictional stories as well, or non-fiction. Thank you for tuning in on the chat. Hello to Halo, nice to see you in the house. Linda, Anya are here, Brandon, all of you. It's been great to see you. I hope you're doing very well. If you are listening back to this, then thank you, or if you're watching it back, please consider that subscribe button, because you can get engaged with the live shows like we are just now, and you can drop your comments in and your questions in throughout the show. And of course, at the end of the show, when we have a designated section for those questions, please do get them in. So let's get a bit of news, shall we, out there. And there's quite an interesting development today on the writingcommunitychatshow.com website. There was a listen notes section that I keep down there, and that is a podcasting kind of information thing, and it gives you a score. So if you're a podcaster, go and check that out and see where you rank. But it upgraded from 10 to 5% today, and I was curious as to what that was. So I went and clicked on that, and it said that as of today, the Writing Community Chat Show is one of the top 5% most popular shows out of 2.8 million shows globally. And that is blown my mind. How has it got to that stage? I don't know. Going 2 years ago, we're nearly at 200 shows. The people we've had on here, whether they're indie or established, have just been incredible. And I'm guessing the community around it, that you guys, the listeners and the viewers, have made that happen. So incredible. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you that tune into that. Also, just before our guest does come on, Indie Takeover, that is happening. We have got the ball rolling with the Indie Takeover. If you do not know what that is, the Indie Takeover is a Twitter page that I set up alongside the Writing Community Chat Show. And that Twitter page is all about the writing community and supporting one of its members. So Indie_Takeover on Twitter, we did a poll, and the most popular genre that came out was, in fact, fantasy. So we are looking for a fantasy author, and that will be decided very shortly. We will do a poll with 4 fantasy authors, and that winning author will be displayed on our webpage, an entire page sectioned off for them. We will try and get everybody to follow them, to buy their books, to read it if possible, and to leave a review, as well as support them socially and just kind of give them a massive boost of their career. It could be the fact that they're just starting out, or they've written 3 books and maybe they're selling often, maybe they're not. And we're just there to kind of give them that push in the right direction. And it's a big community effort. So that is something that if you want to get involved with, please go and check that out. And in the notes to this show, you will find the links to that. Nice to see you all chatting in the chat as well. Not that I'm at all distracted. So tonight's guest, very excited about this, is someone who felt the need to share her story. And I guess a lot of us do, but it takes that kind of brave character to go and do that. And she needed to share his story of parenthood, which is something a lot of us have gone through. And she did that through a blog that very many people connected with. And that led her to writing. And tonight's guest dropped the Unmumsy Mum, which is the title of her first book, in 2016. That book became a Sunday Times bestseller. Again, something people strive to achieve. And it was voted number 4 in Amazon's top 100 books of 2016. Incredible feat there as well. And that was the start of an unbelievable writing career, which we will talk about in depth tonight, of course. And our guest has gone on to write a further 2 Sunday Times bestsellers since then as well. So 3 in the bag there. It's not a bad start to writing, is it? So just before I get that show on, I'll play my little video. My name is Chris. Thank you for tuning in. You are watching the Writing Community Chat Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Turner. Hello, Sarah.
Ooh, hello, the suspense then being backstage.
In the imaginary green room.
I know. I know people can't see you when you're backstage, but I was like, can they though? Can they? No.
I think you were safe. I think just about. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me. We had a very quick chat just before we were on air. We were enjoying ourselves quite a lot. So I was like, save this golden conversation for afterwards. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're well.
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. And you are coming from, for those who don't know, down in Cornwall, which is kind of southeast England.
I'm in Devon, so I'm in Exeter, but I grew up in Cornwall, so yeah, I haven't ventured far.
Very nice indeed. So everyone's saying hello, Sarah, in the chat. That's very nice to welcome our guest. If you have any questions, like I said, you can drop them throughout, but you can save them for the end as well. Sarah, what we do like to do at the start of this show and throughout the show is really find out about you as well as your writing and your books, which is something I kind of like. And I like to find out the stories as well. And I know you've got some in there. So as we go through this, by all means, don't treat this like an interview. It's a chat between people. So I think we'll be okay. So first round of this show is called The Road to Writing. So I'll play this video and we'll get to it. Also, when we're not on screen, I can still see you, and we both did a dance to that video.
We did.
Okay, Sarah, let's find out about you in writing. Where did the journey start for you? What was the inspiration, and kind of was that like an early stage in your life, and how did that develop?
Okay, so my kind of writing adventure didn't really kick off until I'd had my first son. So I've got 3 boys. My eldest is 10, so about just under 10 years ago, I had a part-time job working at Exeter University. I didn't do anything writing based as a career, but writing has kind of always been a passion, but one that I'd maybe, I don't know, put to the side. I don't want to say given up on, but it felt like it was a bit of a pipe dream to be a writer. So I had a job, and yeah, I had baby number 1, and I felt overwhelmed would be putting it mildly. When I had Henry, I felt like everybody around me was coping really well, all the other mums, and we had, don't get me wrong, we had good days, but we had days where I just felt like I wasn't cut out for the job. So I looked around kind of online and in print as well, I wanted to read something that would make me feel better, to kind of make me feel less of this accident of motherhood that couldn't quite cope with this baby that had hurricaned into our world. And I looked for stuff that would make me feel better, and in all honesty, all I found was stuff that made me feel worse. So I think 10 years ago, I mean, there's been a massive shift, but 10 years ago, parenting commentary online was very kind of glossy. It was the sort of show reel, the best bits, hashtag blessed, cherish every moment. There was a lot of that. And I was kind of wading through it going, I'm not cherishing every moment. What's wrong with me? And I just decided, it's really hard now when people say like, oh, how did you decide to, you wanted to like get back into writing, and I kind of didn't. It honestly just sort of came out. I felt really, really inspired to write something, and I didn't quite know what to do, but I knew people were doing blogs at the time for food, like recipe blogs and stuff, fashion and stuff. So I just Googled how to start a blog, and I set one up. It was the most unprofessional page you've ever seen. I wrote a blog post, I pressed publish, didn't have any social media accounts or anything at this point. It was just like an online diary, and that was the start. I was away, so I was kind of writing to no one, but absolutely loving it. It made me feel better.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question, but you answered it kind of, that when the things you looked at didn't kind of give you the answer that you were after. And the glossiness was what I was expecting you to say. And it is kind of a harsh reality that we live in, especially today with young people.
Yeah.
That it is the picture life that always is shown, and the makeup characters and all of these things that must lead people to like an insecurity. It's with parenthood and just that sort of character sort of confidence these days. So
Yeah.
it is kind of important, as you did, to portray the real life story in that sense.
I think so. I think it's really important to have balance, like no judgment from me for, editing photos or setting up a nice family photo shoot or trying to get that insta perfect shot. Like I feel like that's fine, just as long as there's information or kind of stuff out there that shows the other side of it. So the not so glossy, just the reality of it, the warts and all, like this is how it is and this is how I'm feeling, and that's okay to have an off day, and there's not actually anything wrong with you.
Yeah. I mean, is anyone kind of prepared to be a parent? I mean, there's only so many things you can do. Even if you kind of read all the books and things, you never really know how to handle that until it comes at you, I don't think.
No, I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for parenthood. And actually, I didn't feel prepared to be a mum third time around. I didn't feel like I knew a little bit what I was letting myself in for, but it doesn't mean I felt like I knew what I was doing. I feel like parents just wing it forever. Maybe that never ends. Maybe we just kind of make it up as we go along and hope for the best. But yeah, certainly at that time I wasn't.
Oh no, are we frozen?
Oh no, I'm there. I can see.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought, was everybody else having just this amazing, loving every moment experience? Or my suspicion was that maybe other people weren't enjoying 100% of it, but hadn't felt kind of comfortable or confident or liberated enough to say, yeah, do you know what? Some days are just a bit shit. Like that's like that's the balance of it. So I just went for it on the blog. I really, really, really went for it. And I think my first blog post was called "Other Mums Must Be Lying." Which tells you all you need to know. It was very kind of, it was tongue-in-cheek humor, but there was a serious edge to it. There was a kind of an edge about the importance of talking about how you're actually finding it for your mental health as well. So that's what I did. But yeah, it kind of, that was the start of me getting back into writing, from having not really written anything for years. So yeah, it was mad, but I just loved it. It was like an online diary, and yeah, it wasn't until people started to. I think I set up a Twitter account first, and started sharing blog posts. Like I had very few views, but I didn't really care. And then I put it on Facebook, and that was like the moment. Probably, if I had to pinpoint a moment that had sort of changed my life, it would probably be setting up the blog, and then the day that I decided to set up a Facebook page, because that was when it went just crazy.
Do you think that perhaps the success of it was because you were using it as almost like an outlet for yourself, and the reality was there, and as you said, it was a different approach that people hadn't seen yet?
Yeah, I do. I think I wasn't the first person to, I didn't invent the parenting blog. I wasn't the first person to kind of offer my thoughts and feelings about parenting, but I felt like there were myself and a couple of others, including Katie Harafajin, who does the little stick cartoons. There are a couple of us around at the same time, that I think kind of we got in there at a good time, because it was kind of ahead of the curve of the mum blog explosion, I think. And yeah, I do. I think it resonated with people because I had written all those initial posts not really ever expecting anybody to read them. They were like raw. It was, you know, it was like stripped back and vulnerable and really like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But I didn't, I guess I could never, I couldn't foresee that so many people would read them. And actually that was quite a horrifying moment when everybody's like, oh, it's the dream to go viral. And it's like, is it? Because actually
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I can't put that back. It's like, it's
And you were really writing, as you mentioned, real raw things as well, like real stories that were happening, embarrassing things at times as well.
yeah.
So it must have taken a lot of confidence, perhaps, maybe not initially because you didn't think many people would look at this, but like when it started getting bigger and bigger, was there a fear there that actually everyone's reading this now?
Yeah, there was, and I think it depends. I existed for a short while in this really nice bubble where the followers that I had were mums who clearly felt very similarly to how I did, and so it was this real safe space. It was like it was like an echo chamber of, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And so I only really for a while had praise. You know, people were like,
Mm,
this is really good, we're really enjoying it, you should write more. And it probably went to my head a little bit to start with, and then the more times it got shared, and you know, somebody shares it that's your friend, but then not their somebody that's not their friend shares it, and it goes on and goes on and it snowballs, and then all of a sudden it was landing on the Facebook timelines of people who didn't agree with what I was saying and
mm,
didn't like the fact that I was moaning about my kids, and then took the time to kind of message and say, well, you know, if you're going to whinge about your kids all the time, you shouldn't have had them in the first place, or you don't deserve your kids, or I feel sorry for your kids, or so there was
wow.
a real moment where I was like, you know, there have been several times over the years where I've thought about just jacking it in and
Hmm.
not doing it anymore, for all sorts of reasons. But I think for every message I got from somebody that went, you don't know how lucky you are, there would be 10 more from people going, oh my God, thank you so much. I've been so worried that, you know, there's something's not right because I don't love every second. And you know, reading what you've written has really offered me comfort. So though I think they kind of kept me going, but yeah, it was a horrible, it was like really exciting when it all blew
Hmm.
up, but also really, I felt so overexposed all of a sudden. Yes, it's quite scary as well.
I bet. I mean, that's kind of the danger of also having books kind of blow up, which yours did as well. Um, because you will get, and if you look at any best-selling book anywhere, you will see the positives
Yeah.
in mass, and you will also see some people leaving bizarre negatives. But it is just the way of that attention, isn't it? And did you kind of felt like that you dealt with that well enough that you carried on um, keeping true to what you were doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think if ever I was feeling kind of like under attack, I tend to just go to ground for a bit and not
Yeah.
write anything. And also, I think my kind of response to criticism has matured over the years. So 10 years ago, if somebody attacked me, I would attack them back. So I would feel so defensive that, you know, Janet from Wolverhampton had taken offence to one of my blog posts,
Mm,
that I would feel like I needed to prove to Janet from Wolverhampton that I loved my kids. So I would do all of these elaborate posts about, you know, somebody said this, but it's really upset me because, and you cannot, because you can't please all of the people all of the time, right? So you can't do that. You can't do a knee-jerk reaction or a knee-jerk blog post every time somebody
yeah.
and also sometimes I'll be honest, they had a point. Like I didn't disagree with all the criticism. Like sometimes people have said stuff to me and I thought, yeah, do you know what, you're right. Like out of context that blog post just sounds so whingy and I sound so ungrateful, and I totally get why it would rub people up the wrong way. And I've actually had some nice exchanges with people over the years where I've replied and said, yeah, I'm sorry that, you know, my post made you feel bad, and then they've kind of gone, oh no, I'm sorry, and we've had, whereas
Well,
yeah,
that's a good developing of relationship with your readers. I guess that's brilliant. I mean, some of the stories that you talk about and kind of we mentioned before the show, some of them are the horrifically funny realities of being a parent, though, aren't they?
they are. So yeah, it's everything from you know, like every parent's got some kind of soft play hellhole experience.
Yeah.
So it ranges from kind of wet socks at soft play when you don't really know why your socks are wet or what the wetness is, to the time that I was on the phone to my somebody from my publisher, trying to be professional, and my youngest at the time, my then youngest, took his trousers down and did a poo in our DVD cupboard. And she was going, so I'm just going to send over all your train stuff, and you've got some flights for these festivals. And I was going, She was like, Sarah, are you okay? It's now no longer kind of a good time, because I was juggling working with, looking after the kids. And I just had to go, do you know what? I'm really sorry. My son's just shat on Despicable Me too. And she was like, right, okay. That's what you thought. And I didn't think it was that bad a film, but
Yeah, the best review that's going. No, of course not. It's a great film.
yes,
Steve Carell's brilliant.
just moments like that, isn't it? Where every parent of young kids has got a story where they're like, I can't believe, like the pre-parent version of yourself would have been mortified, but there comes a point when you're just like, well, it is what it is. Here we are.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a parent out there that has gone on a trip to, say, from Wales, where I am, to, say, Cornwall with a small child, there's more than likely a chance that there is some incident needing the toilet at some stage in that car journey.
Absolutely.
And that's the very least you can expect.
Yeah. And I think that was the thing. Like, I think a lot of the posts that went kind of viral early on were ones where people were like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. I'm so glad it was, I'm so glad it was you and not me. And yeah, I was happy to be that person for people. It was like, it's fine. We're all in it. We're all in it together.
Carried the torch. I love it. It's brilliant. Yeah. So once the blog was up and running and you were having all these amazing conversations, whether they were good, bad, or kind of negative, at what stage did you start thinking then this can be something I can put into a novel, which became the Unmumsy Mum?
So I started kind of, I had this like ongoing note on my phone that was sort of like book ideas. And then I published, I think it must have been like about 30 or 40 blog posts. And there was just this day that was basically like every, aspiring author's dream, when I had a message on Facebook, such as The Modern World, from somebody that's, that said, hi, Sarah, hope you don't mind me getting in contact out of the blue. But I'm an editor, and
wow.
I have been reading all of your blog posts. I don't have children, but I think what had happened was, so this editor at the time had noticed that several of her friends had shared blog posts of mine, and those friends didn't know each other.
Wow.
So she'd looked at it and she'd gone, hang on, like 4 of your friends have shared this blog, but they don't know each other, so they haven't seen it on each other's timeline. So who is this person, and why is she suddenly appearing all over my Facebook feed? So she went back and she read my blog, all of it, and just said, if it's okay with you, I would really like to pitch the Unmumsy Mum non-fiction, like to our acquisition, I think it was like Tuesday morning acquisition meeting. I want to print your blogs off, take them in, and say, there's an appetite for this, and I know there's an appetite for this because it's everywhere at the moment. So we want to like strike while the iron's hot. And I remember running in circles around my kitchen, but also not really believing it, because I was having to get ready to go to work the next day and sort out the kids and take them to the childminder, but having this like real moment of, oh my God, this could be massive. Like, yeah.
And indeed it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
worked out all right.
Yeah, of course it did. I mean, the people that were reading the blog, and obviously there was some attention there and it was doing well. Did you have any idea that, first of all, it would be doing well in the charts, not to mention becoming a Sunday Times bestseller?
I didn't know, to be honest, because the whole world of publishing was so alien to me. I mean, it still is a little bit. Not, it's you learn so much as you go, but also you don't. There are times when somebody will tell me something, and I think, Christ, still don't know anything at all. I don't know how it works. Especially moving from non-fiction to fiction, the it's like a minefield. The jump has been,
Mm.
but I don't know. I think I had this sense that if I was writing a blog post, and I think I had one blog post and it had like something like 225,000 views, and I
Wow.
thought to myself, you know, that's, it's no longer in the territory of, oh, it's just my dad, or it's just so
It's certainly not.
can't be him every time. So I had this, I guess, belief that there would be an appetite for it because people were already reading it. Although there's a big difference between what people will kind of, I don't know, I guess freely consume on the internet and actually commit to buy, because
Yeah.
you need to promise them more, I think, if you're going to ask them for their money. But I did think I thought it might do okay,
Yeah.
but I never in my wildest dreams imagined that it would be a Sunday Times #1 bestseller, and and it was shortlisted for a British Book Award, and it was just madness, like a roller coaster of absolute madness. It still is, really.
Mm. Fantastic. It really is. I mean, yeah, top 4 in Amazon's top 100 books of 2016.
I know, and that was based on they did that based on customer, so it was based on
Yeah.
reviews, which if that almost it means more. It's not like a judging.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a true readership view, isn't it? And that just is an incredible achievement. And so you had written the first book.
Yeah.
At what point was there a suddenly realization that maybe you've got a bit of pressure on your shoulders for number 2?
So I hadn't. It was really weird because I was offered. I've actually done 3 non-fiction books and then stepping up. So I hadn't considered anything beyond the first.
Yeah.
I thought, to be honest with you, let's just make hay while the sun shines.
Absolutely.
This is your moment, Sarah. Grab it with both hands. You'll never get this opportunity again. You'd be absolutely daft as a brush not to go. But actually, before book 1 came out and it hit the Sunday Times spot, I was offered a 2-book deal. So it was like my publisher, honestly, God bless Transworld, the leap of faith that they took, first of all, at the beginning, but then also, before, I think they must have had some idea that it was going to do okay, obviously pre-orders and what have you, but there was no chart at this point, and my agent phoned and was like, yeah, so they've come in for 2 more, and I was like, what is going on? Yeah, I feel like I'll feel like that forever. Every time a new deal happens, I still think now, oh, my luck will run out any minute now. And if it does, that's fine. I'm more than happy to go back to a normal job. But yeah, it's just madness.
Fantastic. It really is an incredible journey. I mean, your excitement must have been super, super heightened at that point when they discussed the two book deal. Or an extra 2 books, but what did you feel? Was there any sense of like, hang on a minute, what if that's a big estimation or expectation even?
Yeah, and I think the pressure was almost greater because the first book had done well. And I'd used, so I think the first book contains some blog material. Not a lot, because I was, they made it quite clear, understandably so, that you can't just publish something that anybody could pick up on a website. It has to be new material. But some of the kind of like hero blog posts, I guess, the ones that had done really well, made it in certain form into the first book. And so when it came to writing the second book, I decided to do it as a diary format. And yeah, I did feel like starting with that blank page of no material to kind of add to it. And then also thinking, are people still going to be interested? Are they just going to be like, oh, not her, she's still banging on about her kids again? Like, who cares? But yeah, people did care. Like my followers and now readers are just really lovely, like super loyal and really, supportive, which is, that is why I'm still here, to be honest.
Absolutely. Do you know, like celebrity singers, they have names for their fans. Do you have a name group for your fan group?
I don't know. I really wish I had one now.
I've never asked that before, and I think that would be something that maybe authors should start doing as well.
Yeah, maybe. I'll be completely honest with you, Chris. I actually hate the name the Unmumsy Mum now.
Okay.
And maybe hate's too strong a word, but I had to pick a name for my blog that day when I was writing to no one.
Mm.
And I came up with it in about 10 minutes. I think I was probably even like bouncing a baby or something at the time. It was kind of like, oh, what should we call it? And to me at that time, like the Mumsy Mums were the ones that kind of had their shit together and knew what they were
Yeah.
doing, and kind of fitted the role. And I felt unmumsy in comparison, which is where it came from. But I think it so often gets misconstrued with people being like, oh, you're like attacking mumsiness. And it kind of was never my intention, but also because it had stuck, and it kind of, I don't know, it's like, it's weird on social media, it becomes a brand, so you can't just all of a sudden go, yeah, well, I'm like above that now, I don't feel like I identify as being an unmumsy mum now, and maybe quite the same way as I did 10 years ago. So that's really interesting, because obviously that is me, and I am her forever. But I don't know if I would have chosen that name again if I'd known where it would go, if that makes
I think that's the problem there. It's kind of embedded in the world then at that point. So it's kind of hard to move away from that. Just before we move on to the next part, because I don't want to run over too far, because I want to get all the bits in there.
Yeah.
If you can give one tip for someone who's going to write a blog, not just a specific blog about anything, but more about their own lives, what tip could you give them?
Mine, well, first of all, it would be to do it, because you could overthink it until the cows come home and not do it. There'll always be a reason not to do it today, you know. But just like crack on. It doesn't have to be perfect. I suppose that piece of writing advice that's always served me served me well is to write something that you would like to read. So for me, I wrote that first blog post I wrote was the blog post that I needed somebody else to have written for me to make me feel better. So like, write for you. Don't be trying to tailor make it to suit other people's kind of vibe or tone or interests, but think, you know, I don't know. I know it's like really wanky to say be yourself and be authentic, but I think that is key. I don't think my blog would have taken off if it wasn't just me on the page, like, you know, completely imperfect, warts and all, kind of brain dump. So yeah, like be yourself is, you know, is a cliche, but it's probably, yeah, it's there for a reason.
Absolutely. Being genuine has got to be one of the biggest tips in that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to part 2, guys, which is Watch the Story. We'll learn all about Stepping Up, which is Sarah's latest book. So let's play the video and let's get into that. So Sarah, let everybody know what Stepping Up is all about.
So Stepping Up is my first novel, and really it's Beth's story. So it tells the story of Beth, who is in her early 30s and pretty hopeless at life, really. She's kind of considered by her friends and family that know her best to be a bit of a quitter. So she never really manages to stick at anything. Jobs, relationships, bit of a dreamer, and, you know, zero responsibility. So that's kind of the crucial starting point for Beth, is she doesn't have to, or she's never had to take care of anyone or anything. And the premise of the book really is that kind of in the space of a day, Beth's life is turned upside down when her sister and her brother-in-law are involved in a car accident, and Beth is drafted in to look after her teenage niece Polly and toddler nephew Ted. So she goes from having zero responsibility to being in this really stressful situation and having to look after 2 kids. So that's the test. That's, she has to step up. But you know, as with any novel, that's kind of what happens, but it's not really the story. So the story is, you know, there's a love interest, there's a romance strand to it. There's a friendship with Beth's elderly next door neighbor Albert, who's in his 80s and can't writes text messages in capital letters, and kind of helps her out a bit. It's quite an unlikely friendship, and they actually form a book club. So it's basically a will Beth managed to step up and do the things that everybody around her thinks she won't be able to do because she's Beth and she's hopeless. So that's the gist of it.
It does sound wonderful, and it's had some fantastic reviews already. And it kind of sounds a little dark when you initially talk about it and the tragicness of it. But then some of the reviews are, I laughed, I cried, such a wonderful book. And that's echoed throughout all of the reviews. And that was just a tiny sentence at the end of a massive paragraph. But this one, for example, I really enjoyed Sarah's writing style. The balance of humor alongside the seriousness of the situation was refreshing. I really hope there are more novels to come. It's a great review again. But the question I've got off the back of that is Sarah's writing style, the balance of humor alongside the seriousness. Is that something you kind of had to practice to do, or you were conscious of while you were doing it? How did you kind of approach that?
I think naturally my writing style is I tend to gravitate towards writing humor. So when I came up with the idea for this book, which is a really serious, it's a serious kind of topic and it is quite heavy in parts, I did wonder how I would get that kind of uplifting comedy and humor in. And in all honesty, I didn't manage that balance successfully until I think draft 4. So
Okay.
the first draft, which was written, quite a lot of which was written during lockdown when I was homeschooling 2 children and looking after another one, was described by my editing team as being relentlessly sad. So I'd promised them this uplifting. I'd gone, guys, it's going to be so uplifting. It's going to really make you laugh. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to feel warm and fuzzy. And everybody just cried and was like, there was no balance for that. Like, you've made us cry, but we don't now feel like we want to pick up the book again. It's like so bleak. No one wants to read it. So I was like, oh, brilliant. So that was draft 1. And then I think I found my stride with it as I was editing, and just managed to. I mean, Ted, who is 3 in the book, we were talking earlier about kids and humor and all the stuff they do, and I think that's the brilliant thing about having a young character in a book, is that regardless of how much stress is going on in his life, a 3-year-old is a 3-year-old, so they say funny stuff and they throw you under the bus by putting, but like saying embarrassing stuff or telling somebody what you've said about them. So Ted was a really good tool for me in terms of humor, and Albert too, the like octogenarian next door neighbor. I think it was probably the kind of supporting cast of characters that helped me bring the humor in. But yeah, if I hadn't done that, nobody would be going, oh, it's refreshing and it's hilarious and in all that, like they are in those lovely reviews. Because it wasn't. I think that's important, because I think it's important for people to know that the first draft would not have had those.
Well, they could have missed the boat there, because some people like to read a book to cry, so that would have been perfect.
That's true. Yeah, you never know, something for everyone.
But the fact that you got them crying is a good sign that your writing is very connected to. It's very it hits the spot in that sense. So it couldn't have been a bad thing. And obviously you developed your characterization throughout that, and all of those good things to do with the characters. And this is another comment separately to the last one. Sarah's characterization is excellent. I feel like it's got a lot. I felt like I really got to know each of them individually, including Emma and Doug, and the relationships between them all. So that kind of echoes what you spoke about earlier in terms of building the characters and their humor aspects into the sadness of that story. But for someone who may be watching or listening that is trying to work on their characterization, for example, and maybe even relationships, what advice have you got for them that you could, give some advice on that maybe helped you throughout that process?
For me, I would just say like build the character and then just keep building. Like I hadn't, like, Beth was the first character I had in mind, and I knew certain things about Beth, but I didn't know like her quirks and her mannerisms and all of those sort of things. And I think I'm like a big people watcher. So if I go into a cafe, I'll watch people and I'll kind of I eavesdrop on people's conversations and kind of imagine what their backstory is. And I think if I had an iPhone note again for most of my main characters, and I would add to it. So I would see somebody do something, and I would think, you know, Beth would do that, or she wouldn't behave in that way because she would do this. And it's like that test of like, if you've got characters in your mind and you're watching something on TV, I might think, oh, I wonder how my character would react in that situation. That's always a good test. If this happened to them, how would they react? And you need to know them well enough to know, I think, what they would say, whether they would be awkward, whether they would be the first to leave the party or the last. You know, you kind of need to get to know them. And again, that evolves. Like, it doesn't happen instantly. And I felt like I got to the end of the book writing process, or the end of the draft even, and felt like I was going back to edit earlier chapters, because by that point I decided Beth wouldn't do that. That's not something she would do. But you know, the first few chapters, I guess I don't know. It's, you kind of get to know them as well as you go. But yeah, try and think about the everyday details. I always think, like, it might be weird, but like I kind of imagine, you know, what they look like when they're walking down the street. Like, what are they somebody when they brush their teeth that they rinse their toothbrush and put it back nicely, or do they leave a mess? Like, or, like, the little things that make humans human, because I think it's those interactions, and it's those like everyday moments, the ordinary bits of how somebody behaves that make a character realistic, like make people relate to them and think, I can imagine somebody doing that. So yeah, for me, it's less, I'm not very particularly descriptive, so it's less about what Beth looks like and more about how she behaves and her sarcasm, and yeah, all of those sort of things.
We all love a bit of sarcasm. That's a really interesting concept. I've heard about people kind of interviewing their characters, or just kind of writing down what they think, you know, like a dating, fast dating kind of approach.
Yeah.
I've never actually thought of it that way, because most of us, I think, who write must be kind of into kind of people watching just out of curiosity of character.
Yeah.
But to actually picture your character in that position or in that situation,
yeah,
I think is a really valid kind of helpful tip.
Who are they when nobody else is? Because none of us are who we are when other people are. You know, like when we're on our own and there's nobody watching you, right? Horrifying thought. You wouldn't want somebody to be watching you when you don't think anybody's watching you. But like, for example, I'm 35 and I still suck my thumb. Like, I know that's really embarrassing, but I do it when I'm tired. And I think if you think about your characters, it's kind of like, what do they do that they probably wouldn't do in their office, or but it is part of, you know, who they are. Do they immediately put their pajamas on when they come home from work? Do they say that they love going to the beach but actually hate being outdoors and prefer just watching Netflix? Or, you know, like those kind of who they are, not just outwardly, but what their like internal thought process is, I guess, is how I tend to, that's like the starting point. Like, what's she really thinking in this situation? And then go from there.
I amazingly nearly put a tweet out a couple of days ago, and I was going to ask how many people get in from work and put on pajamas or relaxing clothes, or do they go out and do something? And I didn't do it, and I wish I had now, because we would have had some sort of answer for that there, because that is a question I'd like to know. If you guys are watching this now, when you get in from work and you've had a long day, do you A, get changed into something comfy and sit on the sofa and chill out, or B, do you go out for a walk or do something quite active? Let me know. Interested in that one.
Yeah.
What do you do, Sarah?
It really depends. Like, you know, I wouldn't have subjected everybody tonight to my like. I often wear my husband's pajamas as well, which, you know, is even less of a good look if you're doing some broadcast. But yeah, I'm a bit of a mixed bag. I love nothing more than getting comfy. But also sometimes I feel like if I put my pajamas on or put like loungewear on of some description, I then immediately feel really tired, and then I'm like, oh, I've still got to do parenting things, and, you know, sort of sort out school admin and stuff. So sometimes I quite like staying in my like day clothes until all the kids are in bed, and then getting changed, and then being like, right, it's like bedtime, grown up to TV or reading time or whatever now. Yeah.
Excellent. That sounds good, like a good plan. I wonder if it's like a conscious or subconscious thing that you do, that you're in your pajamas, so your brain says relax.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, like a glass of wine.
Yes. Anya says relax, take care of the dogs, walk her as needed. mostly work from home though, so I guess that's a different scenario.
Yeah.
If you're working from home, especially people through lockdown,
Yes.
I'm guessing you wanted to get out of the house at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's go on to part 3 of the show, guys. Often a good part of the show if people send in some interesting questions. And Sarah has openly said she will answer some interesting questions tonight, as I will. So, of course, send them in. The next section of the show is called Community Questions, part 3. Guys, we have 15 minutes left. If you've got some brilliant questions, send them in. And I shall ask a couple of my own while you're doing that. So, welcome to part 3 of the show. So, Sarah, I've got a couple of questions for you, and hopefully we'll get some in from the audience as well. My first question to you is, if you could take the ending of anything, whether it's a book, a TV show, or a film, and you wanted to change the ending for any reason, good or bad, what ending are you going to change and why?
Oh, do I have to do this without spoilers though? Like if it's a book, I don't want to spoil. It's a tricky one. Okay, I'll try and. So I imagine a lot of book fans will have read Sally Rooney's Normal People, and even though I understood the ending, it wasn't the ending that I wanted. So yeah, I wanted I respected the ending, but I wanted happy ever after.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's not too much of a spoiler. Do you think that's perhaps what the author may have intended at the time, or do you think that's
actually it's a really interesting one, because I won't give away the ending of my book either, but there has been a divide in terms of people being like, I really wanted this to have happened, and it didn't, and other people being like, I love how you ended it. And I think you will never please everyone. And sometimes I think for me with Normal People, like the ending was objectively was probably the right one, and maybe that's why part of why she's had the success that she had because it doesn't have to be like the obvious ending, but I don't know, sometimes you just want that feel good, like and it's all going to be okay, and they'll live together happily forever. And yeah, I sometimes I'm torn. Maybe I'm a bit torn. I kind of, if that had been the ending, would I have been like, oh, I saw that coming? So she
exactly
can't win. But
I think that's a really tough one, isn't it? Because if you do what, like as you said, expected, you do feel like a bit of cheaped out. But then if you go like Game of Thrones, unexpected, then you get furious. So
yeah. And there'll be people that will there'll be people that will favor different ways of ending a book or a film. What about you? Is there a book or a film that you're like, that's not the ending I would have chosen?
Well, that was one of them, Game of Thrones, which was just such a, when you invest in something for so long, you want to have a justifiable ending. And it can almost be, all right, that was okay. But when it's like, you just put such a bad kind of taste on the whole thing.
Those hours invested, isn't it?
Yeah. I know I've mentioned this on the show before, but I'll say it again. I've watched The Walking Dead since it started 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's coming to the end. Although the spin-offs appearing everywhere. I'm desperate for them just to finish that and make it good.
Yeah. Oh God, the pressure.
There's huge pressure on it because it's 12 years of someone's life they've committed to watching this. And the characters have grown up playing those characters for 12 years. So they feel as actors, they want to justify this as well. So there's a lot of pressure on the writer of a TV show in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there is.
So yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, staying with the storyline, if you could take a character from the world of fiction, and I'll change this because I normally do it one or the other way. I'll put it the other way. If you could take a character from the world of fiction, TV, films, or literature, and take that character out for the day, what character are you choosing, and where are you going?
Oh God, that's a tricky one. I would love to. So I've just last week finished reading Lessons in Chemistry, by Bonnie Garmus, which is like blockbuster of a debut novel from her. And the main character, Elizabeth Zott, is set in the 50s, and she's a scientist, kind of female scientist in a man's world, so kind of struggling against the patriarchy. And it's just one of the best. It's easily one of the best books I've read this year. I haven't processed it enough yet to know if it's one of the best books I've ever read, but I think it might be.
Wow.
And I loved the main character so much that I did an actual like air which I don't do. I don't cry really at books very much. I'm not a crier, so it's always ironic when people are like, "Oh, your book made me cry." Because I'm like, I feel really bad because I don't really cry at other people's books. I love them and I feel them deeply. I don't shed tears generally, but this book got me in the feels so much. I loved the character. And so yeah, Elizabeth Zott from Lessons in Chemistry. I would love to just take her out for lunch, take her out for a glass of wine, and just say like, well done for that. And yeah, that's like probably the most memorable. I mean, I know it's like unfair because I've only just read that, so it might not be my but when I was younger, I was always obsessed with Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. So, you know, if we're going like literary classic character, then I'd
Fair enough.
Take him out.
Okay, we got a question from Anya. Thank you, Anya. It says, if you could put Janet, an avatar for your annoying critics, against any type of creature in a wrestling ring, what would it be?
I mean, I'd like to see Janet, my biggest hypothetical critic, wrestling an actual wrestler, because my kids love wrestling. So like maybe, you know, that would be amazing. See Janet versus The Undertaker or Stone Cold Steve Austin, or I don't know. Do you know though, it's really difficult because I'm so I want to hate on Janet, but I can't because I'm like, I don't know if it's the mum in me, or there's part of me that's like, I want to take, if Janet was in the wrestling ring, I wouldn't want to set something on her. I would almost want to take her to one side and be like, are you okay, Janet? Like, what's really going on here?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's like, you didn't like my book, but what's really wrong with you? I mean, there must be something behind this. Come on.
I think more kids are really, you know, I know you feel sorry for my kids because I'm their mum, Janet, but let's hug it out. I'm really, really bad with confrontation as well, so that's probably why. But yeah, if Janet like wasn't a real person, I would be like, I don't know, like a poisonous snake or something, maybe one that would constrict her. Yeah, that's
another hug. Yeah, and there's lots of hugs coming Janet's way. Okay, what was the last book or film that you read or watched?
So Lessons in Chemistry is the last.
Oh yeah, of course it was. Yeah.
I read. I'm now reading We All Have Our Secrets by Jane Corey, which like seems very good so far. I don't tend to read the same genre back. I tend to mix it up. Like I like thrillers. I like kind of uplifting fiction, but I don't tend to do I won't do like 3 or 4 thrillers all on the bounce. It makes me feel it's too intense.
Yeah.
So I like to mix it up a bit. Last film, I don't trying to think what film I watched last. It's probably going to be something that I've taken the kids to see. I saw Sing 2 in the cinema.
Okay.
Great.
I still haven't seen that one.
Great. It's got great songs in, but yeah, that's obviously the sign of where I am in my life right now. I'm very excited about Where the Crawdads Sing, which is coming out in the cinema in I think June or July, because I read that book and absolutely loved it. And the trailers of Where the Crawdads Sing film, to me, like, you know, there was that worry of will they get it right? Based on the trailer, I think for me they will have done. So yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Amazing. There's a question I'm going to ask now that sometimes it's a bit of a miss because a lot of people don't admit to or like to do this. Okay. So I'll ask you, because I got a feeling you might do this.
Okay.
And that question is, if you were going to sing a karaoke song, what would you sing?
As long as you're not going to ask me to sing it.
No, not at all, unless you want to.
No, absolutely not. I think I would belt out like a karaoke classic, like You're So Vain. I'm really, really good at You're So Vain when I sing it in the shower. I mean, I know like I'm not actually good at it, but
the shower singing.
So why is singing so good in the shower? Like, I'm not joking. I'm in the shower singing, and I'm in the wrong job. I need to like somebody sign me up for Britain's Got Talent, and then I get out of the shower. My kids have said that when I have my headphones in, often I put my headphones in so I can listen to Spotify or whatever while I'm cooking tea. And you have like a special off-key tone when you've got headphones in, but you're singing. And sometimes they'll be watching something, they're like, "Mum, that is so bad. Like I don't even know what key you're in. You're in all of the keys. It's awful." But yeah, I don't know if I've got any other like karaoke classics that I would do. I wouldn't be the first person to get up with karaoke. I'm more likely to get up with a group of people.
Yeah.
Like I remember doing Bohemian Rhapsody with some uni friends once, and we really went.
Classic.
Like, you have to go for it, don't you? You can't, not pretend you're good. We just went like full throttle on that. Yeah. So that's a crowd pleaser. The pub loved it.
Yeah.
I remember that they did, but we'd all had quite a lot of drinks. So.
I think that is an absolute winner in any situation. There is always 60-70% of the room will be able to sing that song with you.
Exactly.
And normally willingly do as well.
You can't like stop yourself from joining in. It's like, I don't know, instinctive. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Lucinda has got a question. Do you feel like Mumsy Mum?
I think she means.
Yeah. Now it's been 10 years, and how do you feel motherhood is worth the pain at the early stages you went through?
I do. I feel like I mean, I don't think I'll ever feel like I'm good at parenting, particularly. Like I feel like I do the best that I can do. But I'm much more kind of confident that my best is good enough now.
Yeah.
I think. Whereas when I was a young, when I had Henry, I was very worried that my best wasn't good enough, and actually that he deserved better. And I don't think that anymore. So I think it is worth it. I mean, I've got my rose tinted glasses on massively now because Wilf, who's our youngest, starts school in September, and he's our third and final child, and that's all three of them then at school. So it's the end of an era. It's been 10 years of having a baby or a toddler preschooler at home, and from September there won't be. They'll all be at school. So obviously now I'm like, I loved it. I loved soft play, loved it.
Yeah.
But I know I just need to get my book out, read it back, and be like, no, oh look, there you are crying again. So yeah, it's mad with roller coaster of parenting, isn't it? Like
it really is.
It's beautiful and maddening and messy and brilliant and tiring. Sometimes all of those things, at the same time. So yeah, it is worth it. If anybody is watching and they're in that really relentless, I don't know, newborn or a particularly difficult phase with a young child, it is like hang in there. They do become like your little buddy at some point, which is nice.
Yeah, there's only so many Sunday birthday parties you have to attend, and then they go away, and then it's okay again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's all good.
Oh, it sometimes is, but as you said, it is totally worth it, and it does. There are many things that surprise you as a parent, and in good and bad ways. So just take the good with the bad, isn't it? Got quite a good question to finish off for you then. If you're looking back on your career, say in 20, 30 years, what does literary success look like for you? Although you've already had 3 Sunday Times bestsellers.
Do you know? It's probably like, I know people won't believe this because they're like, yeah, but everybody wants, and I'd be lying if I said that. I think making it into Sunday Times chart is always a massive goal for me, and to have got there with every book that I've published is mad. But obviously now I'll worry if it doesn't, because I'll be like, well, maybe this one's rubbish. But more than any of that is actually having, like, stepping up in particular. Like I'm really proud of it. So kind of, you know, for me, that's if you strip back everything else, in like, I don't know, 20, 30 years, I would be like, I wrote a book that I'm really pleased with. Like that for me is I think I'll just always be really proud of it. So yes, the awards and everything are you know, and you know, bestseller charts and stuff are amazing. But writing a book that I'm happy with and that has good reviews, and I don't mean all you know, across the board. Like obviously, it's never going to be everybody's cup of tea, but overwhelmingly, it has had good reviews, and that's just magic, because it just means that it's finding readers who enjoy it, and that is like the best. Yeah, at some point I will be like, I had the best job in the world. I don't say that every day when I'm writing. Sometimes I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna quit. I hate writing. But most of the time I am like, there is nothing in the world that I would rather be doing. So yeah,
absolutely. Great answer. I love it. And finally, where can people find more about you, and where can they buy your books from?
So they can find me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, the Unmumsy Mum. And my book is available online from Amazon. It's in bookshops and some supermarkets as well, like Asda and Tesco and things. So it's hardback at the moment, but it will come out in paperback at some point. I don't know when, actually. Whenever people tell me that it's hardback. But yeah, you can. It's got a green cover. You can see it there. So that's the one.
Yeah, I'll tweet it for you guys. You'll find it. Don't worry. Yeah, I'll of course leave in the description to the video and the podcast links to the websites and all that stuff for you guys to have a look at. So please go and support Sarah as well. Go and check out the Indie Takeover, like I mentioned. That's going to start real soon, and that's very exciting. And from me, I can't thank you enough for tuning in. If you're listening back again, thank you so much. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure of you being here. An hour has flown by already.
I know. I've loved it. It's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem at all. So glad you joined me. Everyone else, stay safe, and I will see you next week for another show. So thank you very much, guys. Look after yourselves. Bye. We'll be right back.